But let's talk to Henry Bolton, because we had the news this morning that one of the biggest problems and the biggest concerns now that people in Britain have is immigration. You know, you sometimes hear from, shall we say, slightly left-wing channels and left-wing outlets where they say, oh, but, you know, people don't really care about immigration. This is not the number one concern. Well, apparently now it is. So that would be wrong to say that people care more about the cost of living or the price of everything. They now care more about immigration, not least the illegal immigration that seems to be continuing on the south end of our island. Let's talk to Henry now. Henry, very good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, Mike.
I mean, you and I could have told them this a while ago, that this is going to be a major concern for people, and as we've sort of sashayed our way through this particular subject for the last few years, you know, more and more people have realised what a problem it actually is. And we've got Tory Party conference coming up this weekend and next week. You know, they're going to have to come up with something better than they have so far. You know, Suella Braverman's speech in America was all very well. You know, a lot of people agreed with it. But, you know, we want to see some action, don't we?
We do, Mike. And look, I think one of the reasons that this has become more sort of front and centre is not only because channels like your own have been talking about this a lot more, because the numbers are going up, and of course there's concern amongst the people who do know what's going on. But also, people are being confronted with this day to day now in a way that they weren't 6 years ago. You know, only was it yesterday, the day before, I was driving past a local school, and I saw 5 of these chaps from the local asylum place, and you can tell because they're wearing sort of the issue tracksuit bottoms, and 3 of them have got their hands down their trousers, playing with themselves, just as they're going along. I mean, it's nothing, you know, it wasn't actually sort of because there was anybody else around. It was rather in spite of it. And there's a sort of, you know, people don't like that. Had there not been a bus right up behind me, I'd have got out of the car and remonstrated with them. But, you know, this is the sort of thing that communities such as the one in Folkestone here, and there are various places in all over the country, that are being, you know, this is not something that's happening in another part of the country. It's happening in front of people. So they're very much more aware of it. And they think about it. And they come to realise, when they sort of look at it and they talk about it, that we don't actually know who a great many of these people are, and we're wondering why they're being allowed in and why they're roaming our streets, you know, without any checks or balances. And of course, people are rightly concerned. And at the same time, of course, we see various parts of our country that have basically become, I wouldn't necessarily say ghettos, but sort of monocultural, no, not British, but monocultured areas, which are, they're alien to what we're used to seeing. Now, you know, things are happening too rapidly for people to take it all on board and to feel confident and secure about it. Of course, the government is to blame for this, for allowing that sense of insecurity to occur. And I think there's, you know, it's just continuing. I don't see anything changing. And you say, quite rightly, we've got the Conservative Party conference coming up. Well, you know, Rishi Sunak, one of his 5 promises was to stop the boats. No. Why make 5 promises if you're not going to be able to do anything about it? If you've got no realistic and concrete plan for dealing with it. Quote Hamlet, you spoke me a speech once, but it was not acted upon. So, you know, there's a lot of talk, and including from Suella Braverman. But where is the decisive action to deal with this problem? It's not there, and the British public are fed up.
Yeah, they really are. And as you say, the more kind of obvious it becomes up and down the country that there are more people coming into the country from elsewhere, and it is pretty obvious in some parts of the country, as you say, people see it on a daily basis. You know, it's now noticeable. And, you know, it can no longer be treated, as I think many previous governments have treated it, as a sort of a minor irritation. Oh, because the numbers aren't very much, because the numbers are quite small, you know, we've got much bigger problems to deal with. Well, not anymore.
I think, Mike, had the government actually put the resources into the processing and done what they did some years ago, which was actually turn these people around pretty quickly and have fast track and so on, if they hadn't, under Cameron and May, if they had not cut the resources dedicated to doing this processing and cut their training and so on, then people wouldn't be so concerned because there wouldn't be so many people here. We'd be sending them back. At the moment, we're sending almost, I mean, such a negligible number back that it's meaningless. Yeah. So, you know, there is no one to blame for this but the government for the last 12 or 13 years. Now, I certainly don't want to see Labour come back into power. I want to see a government that can act, that will act, that does so decisively and with the concrete planning behind the action. And it's not there. Why not? Well, there's a raft of problems, and it's going to take very strong and determined, courageous leadership to deal with it. And sadly, the Conservative Party got rid of, the advantage they had effectively with the 80-seat majority that a leader could have driven forward with. So where we're going to go from now, I don't know. I see the problem getting worse. I see no sign of it getting better. And
we were talking the other day about this, Henry. And you were saying that, they used to have this detention centre in Heathrow. They used to have a way of detaining people when they came in, and very quickly then fast-tracked through a system whereby if they weren't right to be here, if they didn't have any real reason to be here, they could be deported literally within a week.
Indeed. But Mike, you've got to have the resources to do that, and you've got to have the personnel who are sufficiently trained to do that. And the problem is that back in 2010, as well as cutting the police by 21,000, the government cut all of the staff who were employed in that sort of role. And before that, Tony Blair in 2006 pulled the funding on a very effective programme that was it was led by the British. It had Australians involved in it, had New Zealanders involved in it, a sort of Five Eyes, for the people who know Five Eyes, a Five Eyes approach, but very much British-led. 12 British agencies and departments behind it, including the Security Service, Secret Intelligence, the Foreign Office, the Home Office, what was then the Serious Organised Crime Squad and the National Criminal Intelligence Service before that. All of these Ministry of Defence and Defence Intelligence all working together in coordination to pool their efforts to actually have an operational effect on the ground across the southern Balkans and elsewhere to disrupt the people smugglers. Tony Blair pulled the funding on that in 2006. So this isn't just about a failure of Conservative government, it's also a failure of Labour government. The fact is that you're right, they think that this is not a problem, and I suspect some of the people on the more economic side of politics and government, such as Rishi Sunak and maybe Jeremy Hunt as well, I suspect they think that actually perhaps these people do contribute, but they don't. Another figure that came out today is that 3 million immigrants that came over because they were sort of specialist qualified people, actually are working on manual tasks because it turns out that they are not qualified for anything else. So there are massive flaws in our present system. It has to have a root and branch overhaul, and damn quickly.
Yeah, it really does. Henry, good to talk to you. We'll be sure talking about it again throughout the course of next week when the Tory Party conference is on. There's bound to be a lot of talk around the subject of both illegal and legal migration because it has become the biggest and most important thing in this country.